Hello there, everyone. It's Patricia Hayes here, and I'm super excited about our coffee time networking chat for today. So, before we jump right in with my good friend Monica Monfre Scantlebury, I want to remind you that this is the coffee time career chat where we are like literally chatting with my newest and besties, whatever in business, whatever you want to call it. But a lot of people that I've been engaging with, new and old folks, as far as building out our professional relationships. And this is the new part for 2022. So I'm super excited to actually do the chatting as opposed to talking about the chatting. And so I invite you to, and welcome, I should say, welcome Monica to our coffee time career chat. I know I said it's conversational. We're just jumping right in. That's
All
exactly what
good.
it is. It's like scattered all over the place. So, Monica and I have met and bonded from a women's networking group that we're both a part of over the course of the last year. And it's just fabulous. I love her. I love her story. So, welcome, Monica.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, yeah. So Monica is in one of my favorite cities in the world. And I'm hoping to get to see her this summer. Well, with my little tag along daughter who is obsessed with the city. Yes, I know. So just so you know, if we get to see each other this summer, she will be with me because she's like, you can't go there without me. Um,
And I totally get that. And I can't wait to see her as well and chat all the things dancing here in New York City. So,
Yes, 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 yes. So I kind of told a little bit about how we met. So, but Monica, give us your version of how we connected because that's always the fun part for me, right? Is kind of remembering like how did we met? How did we meet? So tell me your version.
yeah, so it was in a networking group and you're so enthusiastic and I feel like I have that same sort of personality. I think we started like messaging and I besides running my six-figure side hustle, I'm also a full-time high school teacher, and you mentioned that you were in education, and so whenever people have that, it's always just fun to chat. And then one of the things that you mentioned was doing coffee chats, and I've been really bad about doing coffee chats, mostly because either I'm not good at ending them or they turn into like a pick your brain session and it feels really weird. But you and I just had a coffee chat that kept going and going, and from there we talked about the different ways that we could collaborate and work together. And it was really powerful. And I think the other thing people don't realize is when you're on these Zoom networking calls, is there's the private chat. And I feel like in each time we would, you get more comfortable, you share a little bit more of your story. And I
Yes.
remember you shared a similar, my sister passed away from breast cancer, and you shared a connection there. So I feel like each time it was like, as I dip my toe more into sharing my story, which I share it pretty quickly anyway, but, like, each time it was like, "Oh, we have something else in common. Oh, we have something
Mm-hmm.
else in common," and that really kept on building our relationship. That really has moved beyond just the biweekly calls that we have with that group into DMs and clubhouse rooms and all the things.
Yes. Yes. No, it is. And I love that part, right? That's one of those things that when I'm talking to people about networking, and I'm like, people who hate that word, right? I mean, you and I use it because we do it all the time or whatever, but it's really about building relationships. That's exactly what you just described. And I'm always glad when someone else is doing it because I feel like I'm a broken record. But when I have someone else do it, they're like, okay, yeah, no, that's really what we did is we just kind of kept going back and forth, sharing a little bit more, connecting, and just being willing to be open and to talking about whatever. It doesn't always have to be some specific biz thing or business or professional thing. And that's what I try to really reinforce with people. And I know they have a hard time with it, but because everyone
Yeah.
doesn't like it.
Well, and it's so real. It is, I think sometimes it becomes very transactional, but it doesn't have to be. I always tell
Yes.
people, like, I just got featured on CNN.com, and it happened because I had applied through Harrow for an article, and then it was about breast cancer, and she had filled her spots, but then she reached out to tell me that, and I decided sometimes we can stop, like, somebody reaches out, and I'm notorious, I think you kind of taught me to do the follow-up, and I was like, "Okay, let me just, like, learn a little bit about her," messaged her back. She's from the same state I'm from Wisconsin. said, "Oh my gosh, I read your blog. I'm also from Wisconsin. If you ever need anybody else, let me know." And lo and behold, like the day before the article was due, she was like, "Have you ever like done anything in fitness, like two different modalities?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I actually created a yoga class and a dance class." She had no idea. Sent her this. Ended up being in CNN.com. And I really think it's because of that like networking slash relationship building and like not thinking that something is just transactional. Like
Yes.
that's I think the difference, right? Is that a transaction and like it's cool for me. The article had nothing to do with my business. I don't even really teach yoga anymore. But it gave me that ability to say like I was featured on CNN.com, which was like super exciting.
Yes.
Although she did get my location wrong, but that's okay too. We all have minor.
Well, that's a whole other story for another time, but remind me to tell you about the time that I got mixed up with another Patricia Hayes who lived here in Austin, and there was a whole article where it got mixed up, and they had to redo it because they had confused me, young Black woman in her 40s, with an older white woman in her 60s at the time, and the researcher just forgot to go look at the pictures. It's a whole thing. It is like one of my favorite stories now. And she and I have connected over it over the years because it's this whole huge story. But
Reminds
it
me of the like
happened.
well, it reminds me of the Instagram post where like the woman texted the like young man to come have Thanksgiving and like
Yes,
it's like that same idea, but we never know, and that's like so cool. We never know how a
you never
relationship is gonna
know.
grow.
Because, and I mentioned that because what happened as a result of that was the editor was so horrified about that mix up that they came out and did an entire shoot just on me to make up for it. So before I was just mentioned as part of, I think it was even a Black History Month piece. So I wasn't the only person, but to make up for it, they came out. So I have this whole article that's focused solely on me in this magazine as a makeup to that horrible accident that happened. These are the things that happen when you just kind of go with the flow, and when you do the follow-up. You make my heart sing when you said you followed up with her, right? Because that's my thing.
Yeah, I did. It was like
Yay!
I'm getting better at it. I'm getting
Yes.
better at it. So
Practice, practice. I won't say makes perfect because, hello, I'm a recovering perfectionist, so we don't want to worry about being perfect. However,
yeah.
practice does make things better and it makes it easier. So I'm super excited to hear that. That is so awesome. So when we're talking about that, when we're talking about this whole building relationships, I mean, like you have a whole other career. So like you're doing a 9 to 5 God's work teaching kids and running this business, quote on the side. And I know it's not really on the side for you because I've talked to you. And so what is some of your probably like greatest challenges in trying to network in the midst of all of these things where some of the
Mhm.
scheduling, like you really don't, you don't have anything to say about it. You got to do it. So what's some of your challenges, you think?
Yeah, some of it has definitely been challenges with timing. It's super hard sometimes, especially in like the entrepreneurial world. And I
Hmm.
just saw somebody posting about this on the Facebook group that we really run everything as like daytime Eastern Standard for a lot of networking events. And that's like not realistic for people who have other
Yeah.
responsibilities, like other careers, or they don't live in Eastern Standard Time. And I'm guilty because I actually do live in Eastern Standard Time. So like I see the benefit, I see like both sides of this.
Hmm.
The other thing I think that's been really hard when I talk about networking is I used to start off by saying I'm a high school teacher. And I had to quickly change that because, we have so many there's so many stereotypes about teachers.
Yes.
And typically what would happen in a networking event when I'd say I teach high school is I would get two questions like, are the kids really terrible? Like, is it really as bad as we see on TV? Or like, I don't know how you do it. I could never be a teacher. So I actually had to like rethink how I introduce myself at a lot of networking events to have it be something like, I help, coaches create curriculum based
Hmm.
programs using my expertise as a 15-year teacher to like kind of have that be the second way because
Hmm.
so often I'm sure the same thing happens to people who are nurses or doctors, like people already decide like who you are and what you do.
Lawyers.
Lawyers, yeah, it's so that's been like a challenge that I've had in networking is to rethink how to talk about being a teacher, so that it doesn't become like Monica's a teacher. Like that's all she knows
Yeah,
how to do.
and I'm super sensitive to that. So everyone, if you don't know my background, like my first job out of law school was I represented teachers. I worked for a teachers association for 5 years. And so I am super, super sensitive to the needs of teachers and recognizing what they go through on a daily basis because I've helped them through some of those issues or those concerns. And so everything that Monica just said, I totally get, and how you have to kind of like shift, because even then I've worked in education. I've never been a teacher, right? I've represented teachers and I've done education policy. And it's a matter of taking all of that experience and flipping it now into what I do, which is this coaching, which is this empowerment piece and this networking piece, without people just for, oh, you're a lawyer. I'm like, well, I'm a little bit more than that. Yeah, I'm very proud of being a lawyer because I busted my butt to get through law school. But it's just like Monica said, it's like, how do you reframe things, but without discrediting your work that you have put your life's work into and your time? It's very, very much should be validated, not excused away. So I appreciate you making that point, because I think there's lots more people who, especially people who are in transition, right? I end up having a lot of people come to me who are transitioning, from one role to the next, or even in industries. And I have, that's a whole other thing. I have a friend who literally removed like 10 years worth of work from her resume that I knew she had. And I'm like, why is this not mentioned? She's like, well, it's
Yeah.
not relevant to what I'm doing now. I'm like, it absolutely is. All of that management experience, that skill building, all of those things. So we got to do better about not undercutting ourselves and our experiences
Yeah.
as we move forward. And it really helps when you talk about it from a relationship building perspective, because the minute Monica said that she taught in high school, I was like, yes, I understand you, because I've worked in the education field. So you
Yeah.
never know when something's going to connect with someone.
And it's so, the other thing is that like we have become our jobs before we
Yeah.
become like who we are. And so I think it has been interesting as like I've branched more into networking, going to different events and recognizing also like reading the room. I tell my clients all the time, like you don't have to have the same networking pitch every time you walk into a room.
Yeah.
Have three or four that you like lean into. So sometimes when we are in our networking pad, I'll like look and see who's there and like which one makes sense, or like shift it around when I'm in a clubhouse room, like who's in my audience. And I think too often, and that maybe comes from being nervous about networking, is like having to know exactly what you're gonna say, but like we're also humans. And so
Yeah.
how you show up in a space can be different based on who's inside of that space. Not saying that you should ever lie or have like 10 different,
No.
but like I sometimes, if I'm in a space with educators, I'm going to lead with I'm an educator. If I'm in a space with entrepreneurs, I'm going to lead with that. If I'm in a space where like I went to a BNI once, and I probably shouldn't have said that because we're not here to like talk about other people's networking experiences. But like, when there's a bunch of like real estate brokers in the room, like I am gonna change my like.
It's your approach. It's that part where you say reading the room is not out of alignment with being authentic, right? It's about saying, and this is the piece that a lot of people have problems with, because they don't know how to still be who they are while being in a different space. So they feel like they have to, quote, become something or become someone else. And you don't. It's just a matter of listening, because we want to jump right in. And really, that's one of the strongest skills for people in networking, is sometimes just shut your mouth and listen to what's going on around you.
And it's so important. Like I was just noting, my dog is not doing he's a little bit sick,
Yes.
and he just was having, but I was having this issue with trying to get my car to look at it. And it's something about relationship building that we don't talk about is like, I said to the mechanic, like, I need my car to be able to, the opportunity to take my dog if he needs to go to the emergency room. He's like, oh my gosh, my daughter is like, are you an animal medical center? Like, she used to work in the oncology department there. And we forget that, like, those little moments, that's how relationships, and that moment of sharing that got me my car looked at, and then my car's in today. And it was because of like building that relationship. And when we are inside of networking spaces like you and I, we just like little moments of messaging things
Yeah.
build stronger relationships.
It really does. It really does. Some of the people that I have some of the best and longest lasting relationship with today, I'd never like you never would have seen it coming. And those are the best ones. And because you're willing to share, to talk to people and bide your time, right? Bide your time because things can pick up much faster than you anticipate sometimes, or it's about timing of when it will be appropriate for a deeper dive with that person. Everything's not about that transaction like we talked about, right? If you just leave it at transactional, that's one and done, and we don't do one and done relationship building around here.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So what's your favorite? I know your puppy is needing you. What's your favorite or your most, I won't say successful because that's subjective. But what's your favorite networking strategy or tip with the work that you're doing these days?
So I just shared this one on Clubhouse, and it's been super helpful, which is that I have a Calendly link set up that I can like shoot over to someone, and it reminds them. It verifies that they're going to come. So for a while, I was having people not show up to coffee chats, and so now it sends them a
Mm,
reminder that they have to reconfirm. And that's been really helpful because sometimes we can go back and forth with people trying to find a time to connect, and it doesn't always like work out for us. So that's been my
yes.
biggest strategy. It saves me time and them time as well.
And that's really important these days when we're not seeing people, quote, in person as much. We're not running into them at the water cooler or at the coffee shop. And it really is like, all the email and the messaging and all of this stuff. And there are things that'll pop up, unexpectedly. It just reminded me that I got an email from an old business colleague last week out of the blue, and it kind of scared me. I was like, wait, what? I thought it was spam. Because I hadn't heard from them in such a long time. So it is that thing of just being aware and being mindful of people's time and recognize we're all like doing 1,000 things,
So many things. And we're all like, we're always, sorry, my phone here. I got to give this to, one of the things that like, I think I have learned too is that people are we can have conversations in 6 different places. I remember like I've been having a conversation. You can have a conversation in Clubhouse and in LinkedIn and in Facebook and on Instagram, and we're not always in the same way. So like being really quick for me to say like let's just hop on a call actually saves time, and then you can decide if the person is like, can you refer them? Can this become a transactional networking call because maybe they're a client based like but if we do that in too many different places, I have like don't remember where
Yes.
I last had a conversation with somebody.
Oh yeah. I mean, you just reminded me because it is the nature of things, especially with folks like you and I who are so active on the social media platforms that literally like I will have conversations with people that I swore was in an email and it turns out it was like in a LinkedIn message or a Facebook Messenger. So we have all of these things places. So that is one of those challenges of like, okay, let me consolidate. What does that look like for me for driving the conversation to one place so that I can make sure that I can follow up? And it doesn't matter what it is someone's using, it's still that thought of, what's your space to drive people
Yeah.
to so that when it's time to follow up, you know where to look and where to go.
And that's something that I hadn't been using. Like I had my Calendly link, but I wasn't reconfirming attendance and I
Yeah.
wasn't asking people if they wanted to be on my newsletter. And so just realizing that like Calendly has a lot of like little tips and tools that you can be using, whether it's a Calendly or Acuity or whoever
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
um it's way easier than because I can also track that. Like I can organize it and I also just did this. Oh my gosh, you're gonna laugh at me, but I just downloaded all of my calls and like turn them into a CSV. And I was like, okay, you need to enter these into your like CRM because I didn't realize I could do that.
Oh,
And
wow.
so like now I have I can track how, which of my clients had calls. And so I think beginning to think about how to utilize Calendly and then, training my VA to do some of this work for me to see like, did somebody use all their calls? How many calls do they have left? Was this a call? Did I not follow up? Because you're teaching me that I need to start to follow up. Is this the person that I met with 6 months ago? And can I just reach out to them and say, like, 6 months ago we hopped on a call and chatted about this. wanted to just like link back with you and see where you are, but I hadn't thought about using my Calendly as a way to do that.
I'm just letting you know, like I'm writing that one down because I had not thought about that. So that's going to require, you have taught me something here today, my friend. So I'm going to be checking on that myself.
And I think you can do it in Acuity too. Like, and I didn't realize like you can, and when it pulls in a lot of like useless information, but also it pulls in a lot of like great things. And also, for me, I was thinking too, like when you start to get better about using like the features for calls, for client calls, or for this, like you can ask questions, you can actually pull a lot of the information. So being able to
Yeah,
then
no.
sort it, like, was it a coffee chat? Like now I can sort all my coffee chats that people that did that booking link and put them into a different place.
I
So
love it.
I want to get more organized. That's a 2022 goal. I'm sure it won't happen, but it's a goal.
It will, it will, it will. We're all about our goals. Check out today's, was it, or Monday's coffee chat, which I talked about being an advocate for your goals in 2022. So
Yeah,
there
I'm
we
gonna go take a
go.
look
We
for
can do
sure.
it. We can do it. So, okay, this has been fantastic. Monica and I could chat for much longer. We actually cheated a little bit and started a little early. So you guys
We
missed that. But I am going to move on because I know she has a sick puppy she needs to tend to. But it's been great, my friend, chatting with you. I look forward to it. If people want to follow up with you, where can they reach out to you?
Well, I know you're going to be posting this on LinkedIn, so they can message me on LinkedIn. I'm trying to get better at LinkedIn. My preferred platform, though, is always Instagram. There, I'm just at Monica Monfre. Don't be confused if you don't see Scantlebury. I got married in August, and some places I'm still like catching up with my last name. But I appreciate a DM. Just say that you met me on. We chatted. You heard me chatting with Patricia, so I know I can kind of like track what you might already know about me. And I'm happy to chat anything with regards to curriculum based programs and social media. Those are my two things besides teaching high school.
Awesome. Awesome. It's been awesome. Thank you so much, Monica, for joining us for today's networking chat. You guys, if you have any questions, you know where to reach out, DM me, connect, and let's get some great follow up so that you can get to move on to more of your networking goals this year as well. Have a fantastic rest of your day, everyone. Bye bye.
Hi.